There comes a point in many people's lives when the very trait that once seemed like a burden becomes their greatest source of power. For empaths, this transformation often happens after enduring periods of deep emotional pain. An empath naturally feels the emotions of others with unusual intensity. They notice what goes unsaid, sense tension before anyone mentions it, and often carry the emotional weight of people around them. While this sensitivity can be a gift, it can also become exhausting when it is not balanced with self-awareness and healthy boundaries. In the early stages of life, many empaths view their sensitivity as a weakness. They may feel overwhelmed by conflict, deeply affected by criticism, and emotionally drained after spending time with negative people. They often find themselves giving more than they receive, believing that helping others is their responsibility. Because they care so deeply, they frequently place the needs of others ahead of their own. This pattern can continue for years, creating emotional exhaustion and disappointment. The world often rewards toughness, emotional distance, and self-interest. In contrast, empaths tend to lead with compassion and understanding. Unfortunately, this can make them vulnerable to people who take advantage of their kindness. They may attract relationships where their generosity is expected but rarely appreciated. They may find themselves constantly fixing problems, comforting others, and sacrificing their own well-being. Over time, the emotional cost of this lifestyle becomes impossible to ignore. Pain enters the empath's life in many forms. It may come through betrayal by someone they trusted completely. It may come through heartbreak, rejection, manipulation, or years of being taken for granted. Sometimes it arrives through repeated disappointments that slowly wear down their spirit. Whatever form it takes, the pain forces the empath to confront a difficult truth. Caring deeply for others is not enough if they neglect themselves in the process. This realization often marks the beginning of a profound transformation. The pain that once seemed unbearable starts teaching valuable lessons. The empath begins to understand that sensitivity is not the problem. The real problem is using that sensitivity without wisdom. They learn that compassion without boundaries leads to exhaustion. They discover that understanding someone's struggles does not mean accepting harmful behavior. Most importantly, they realize that protecting their own emotional health is not selfish. It is necessary. As healing begins, the empath develops a new relationship with their sensitivity. Instead of absorbing every emotion around them, they learn to observe without carrying. They become more selective about where they invest their energy. They stop trying to rescue everyone and start focusing on what they can realistically control. This shift does not make them cold or uncaring. Rather, it allows them to care in a healthier and more sustainable way. One of the most powerful changes occurs in their self-perception. Before the pain, many empaths measure their worth by how much they can do for others. They seek validation through helping, giving, and sacrificing. After surviving difficult experiences, they begin to recognize their own value independent of what they provide. They understand that they deserve the same kindness and compassion they so freely offer to others. Pain also sharpens their intuition. Having experienced deception, manipulation, and disappointment, they become more aware of warning signs. They learn to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. The same sensitivity that once made them vulnerable now helps them recognize unhealthy patterns early. They become less likely to ignore red flags and more willing to walk away from situations that threaten their peace. Another remarkable transformation is the development of emotional resilience. Many people assume that sensitive individuals are fragile, but surviving hardship proves otherwise. Empaths often discover a strength within themselves that they never knew existed. They endure heartbreak, recover from setbacks, and continue moving forward despite carrying deep emotional scars. Their resilience is not built on denying emotions, but on facing them honestly and learning from them. This journey changes how they interact with the world. They become more authentic because they no longer feel obligated to meet everyone's expectations. They speak their truth more confidently. They set boundaries without guilt. They understand that not everyone will approve of these changes, but they also understand that approval is not worth sacrificing their well-being. As their strength grows, they begin to inspire others. Their wisdom comes not from theory, but from experience. They know what it feels like to lose themselves in service to others. They know what it feels like to be hurt, disappointed, and emotionally exhausted. Because they have walked through darkness, they can guide others with genuine understanding. Their empathy becomes more powerful because it is balanced by experience and self-respect. The most extraordinary part of this transformation is that the empath does not lose their sensitivity. They do not become emotionally numb or detached. Instead, they learn how to use their sensitivity as a source of insight, strength, and wisdom. What once felt like a weakness becomes one of their greatest assets. Their ability to understand emotions, connect deeply with others, and see beyond appearances remains intact, but it is now supported by confidence and boundaries. The pain that once threatened to break them ultimately reveals who they truly are. It teaches them that strength and sensitivity are not opposites. In fact, when combined, they create a rare kind of power. A healed empath becomes someone who can care deeply without losing themselves, love fully without abandoning their needs, and face life's challenges without surrendering their inner peace. And in the end, they realize that the darkness they feared was not the end of their story. It was the place where their greatest strength was quietly being born. There are moments in life that change a person forever, not because they planned for the change and not because they wanted it, but because the pain they experienced left them no choice but to grow. For an empath, these moments often come after periods of emotional darkness. They arrive after betrayal, heartbreak, manipulation, disappointment, and countless experiences that slowly drain the spirit. While these struggles can feel devastating in the moment, they often give birth to something incredibly powerful: unshakable boundaries. Empaths are naturally caring individuals. They feel deeply, love sincerely, and often place the needs of others above their own. They have a remarkable ability to understand emotions, offer support, and provide comfort during difficult times. Their kindness often makes people feel safe and understood. However, this same quality can also create challenges. Because empaths care so much, they sometimes ignore their own needs. They tolerate behavior they should not accept. They give endless chances to people who repeatedly hurt them. They stay in situations far longer than they should because they hope things will improve. In the beginning, many empaths believe that being a good person means always being available. They think saying yes is kindness and saying no is selfishness. They feel guilty when they put themselves first. As a result, they often become emotional caretakers for everyone around them. They listen, support, forgive, and sacrifice, even when it comes at the expense of their own well-being. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciates this generosity. Some people recognize an empath's compassion and respect it. Others see it as an opportunity to take advantage. They make demands without considering the empath's feelings. They expect unlimited patience, endless understanding, and constant emotional support. Over time, the empath begins to feel exhausted. Their energy is depleted. Their emotional reserves are empty. Yet they continue giving because they fear disappointing others. Eventually, darkness arrives. It may come through a painful betrayal from someone they trusted completely. It may come through repeated manipulation that leaves them questioning their own judgment. It may come through relationships where their kindness was mistaken for weakness. Whatever form it takes, the experience leaves a lasting impact. The empath begins to see a painful pattern. They realize that constantly sacrificing themselves has not protected them from pain. In many cases, it has invited more of it. This realization is difficult, but it is also transformative. For the first time, the empath starts to understand that love without boundaries is not healthy. Compassion without limits is not sustainable. Helping others should never require abandoning oneself. These lessons are often learned through hardship, but they become the foundation for profound personal growth. As healing begins, the empath develops a new awareness. They start paying attention to how people make them feel. They notice who respects their time and who constantly takes advantage of it. They recognize the difference between someone who values them and someone who simply benefits from their generosity. This awareness changes everything. The empath begins setting boundaries. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. They may worry about upsetting people. They may fear being seen as selfish or uncaring. Some people may even react negatively because they have become accustomed to unlimited access to the empath's energy. But despite these challenges, the empath continues moving forward. They understand that protecting their peace is no longer optional. With each boundary they establish, their confidence grows. They learn that saying no does not make them a bad person. It simply means they respect themselves. They discover that not every problem is theirs to solve. Not every crisis requires their involvement. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to their heart. These boundaries do not make the empath cold or distant. In fact, they allow them to become even more authentic. Instead of giving from a place of obligation, they give from a place of genuine choice. Instead of helping because they fear rejection, they help because they truly want to. Their kindness remains, but it is now guided by wisdom. Another important transformation is the understanding that not everyone belongs in their life forever. Some relationships serve a purpose for a season. Others become harmful over time. The healed empath learns that letting go is sometimes an act of self-respect. They no longer cling to relationships that consistently bring pain. They no longer chase people who repeatedly disregard their value. As their boundaries strengthen, so does their sense of inner peace. They spend less time worrying about pleasing everyone and more time focusing on what truly matters. They prioritize their mental and emotional health. They create space for relationships that are supportive, respectful, and reciprocal. They begin to experience a level of freedom they may have never known before. Perhaps the greatest lesson they learn is that boundaries are not walls. Walls are built from fear and keep everyone out. Boundaries are built from wisdom and allow the right people in while keeping harmful influences at a distance. Healthy boundaries do not prevent connection. They make healthy connection possible. The darkness that once felt like destruction becomes a teacher. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every painful experience contributes to a deeper understanding of self-worth. The empath realizes they are not responsible for carrying everyone's burdens. They are not required to sacrifice their happiness to prove their love. They are allowed to protect their energy, honor their needs, and choose relationships that support their growth. In time, the person who once struggled to say no becomes someone who stands firmly in their truth. The person who once feared losing others becomes someone who refuses to lose themselves. The person who once absorbed everyone else's pain learns how to safeguard their own peace. And that is the hidden gift of surviving darkness. It teaches the empath that true strength is not found in endless sacrifice, but in the courage to value themselves enough to create boundaries that cannot be shaken by anyone else's expectations. In conclusion, the journey through darkness is never easy, especially for an empath who feels every wound so deeply. Yet the very experiences that once seemed determined to break them often become the source of their greatest transformation. Through pain, they discover self-worth. Through betrayal, they learn discernment. Through emotional exhaustion, they understand the importance of protecting their energy. Most importantly, they realize that boundaries are not signs of weakness, but expressions of self-respect. A healed empath does not stop caring, loving, or supporting others. Instead, they learn to do so without sacrificing their own peace and well-being. They understand that they can be compassionate without being consumed, generous without being exploited, and kind without abandoning themselves. The darkness may have changed them, but it also revealed a strength they never knew they possessed. So if you have walked through difficult seasons and emerged stronger, remember this: your scars are not proof of your weakness, they are evidence of your resilience. The challenges you survived have shaped you into someone wiser, stronger, and more self-aware. And sometimes, the most powerful version of yourself is the one that emerges after you have faced the darkest chapters of your life and chosen to keep moving forward.